Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'll be talking about citizen science, open data, and public good. I am Lagmay, the Executive Director of the UP Resilience Institute and the UP NOAA Center. My line of work is on disasters, and I have been doing research on disasters for the past 3 decades, helping in search and rescue, conducting disaster forensics, and learning about international best practices to improve local disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation efforts. Let me start by stating that the Philippines is one of the most affected by adverse climate change impacts. Being in the Pacific Typhoon Belt, we get visited by about 20 cyclones that enter into the Philippine area of responsibility. On top of climate-related hydrometeorological hazards, we also have earthquake and volcanic hazards. We are located in the Pacific Ring of Fire, where there is a continuous threat from earthquakes and volcanism. According to the World Risk Index of 2022, which was released in September of the same year by Bundesentwicklung and the Institute for International Law of Peace and Armed Conflict at Ruhr University, we are number 1 in the list, garnering a total score of 46.82%. They ranked the Philippines first in the world in risk among 193 countries worldwide. This comes as no surprise. The geographic location of the Philippines makes the country highly prone to disasters triggered by natural hazards, with some estimations placing 60% of its land area and 70% of its population as exposed to numerous hazards. From 1986 to 2013, there were 1,253 deaths per year on average. The death count per year for the period prior to 2014 was aggravated by the fatality count from Super Typhoon Haiyan. However, even without the count from the Haiyan disaster, the average fatality count per year was at 1,021 deaths per year. From 2014 onwards, what is noticeably different is the lowered fatality count with an average of about 284 deaths per year. Overall, the fatalities per year were reduced by about 75% in the last 9 years. Judging from the annual total damages incurred in the last 9 years, the frequency and strength of cyclones did not decrease. The years 2014 onwards had over $0.86 billion in total damages per year compared to the period from 1986 to 2012, where the average total damages per year amounted to almost $0.48 billion. If 2013, the year Typhoon Haiyan happened, is included, then the average total cost of damages per year prior to 2014 amounts to over $1.02 billion per year. Even with this increased average due to Haiyan, it is evident that there was no significant reduction in the cost of damages due to the impacts of hydrometeorological hazards. This is in stark contrast to the data on fatalities. It is difficult to determine exactly what caused the approximately 75% reduction in the average deaths per year. But if we are to imagine a scenario with no interventions, the average deaths would have remained above 1,000. And if the counterfactual narrative is true, then more than 6,750 lives were saved in the last 9 years. So what did we do to lower the number of fatalities per year? Everybody would have their opinion and would have something to say. Landmark policies such as the Climate Change Act, DRRM law, the 1:50,000 nationwide mapping program which started in 2004, international policies, better education, probabilistic risk assessment, pre-disaster risk assessment, and empowerment are some of the reasons that will be suggested by people. Most likely, each of these contributed to the change, as all of the efforts by everyone surely contributes to the overall effort of disaster risk reduction. It is that simple. If everyone is concerned, there is more awareness, and better awareness leads to better preparedness and actions on the ground. Looking at major events and policies since the start of the nationwide hazards mapping program in 2004, we could see important policies that most likely influenced how we deal with natural hazards. In 2009, there was the Climate Change Act. The next year was when the DRR Act of the Philippines was signed into law. In 2012, there was a shift in the government approach in the establishment of the flagship program of government for disaster risk reduction. This was known as Project NOAA. Project NOAA was not really a project. It was a program for climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction. It was just called Project NOAA because it sounded sexy. In 2014, the Pre-Disaster Risk Assessment, or PDRA, was established to assess imminent threats and required early warnings to be hazard-specific, area-focused, and time-bound. By 2017, the NOAA program was defunded and was adopted by the University of the Philippines as the UP NOAA Center, which is the core component of the UP Resilience Institute, or UPRI. By 2019, realizing the importance of climate change impacts, the National Climate Risk Management Framework, or NCRMF, was put into place. The NOAA program was a new approach in Philippine disaster risk reduction efforts. It was new in terms of the following. Number one, the NOAA program was an investment of government amounting to about 6.4 billion pesos, which includes high-resolution mapping of the country's flood, landslide, and storm surge hazards. Learning from challenges experienced during past disasters, these hazard maps were created to identify the threats at the barangay level. To accomplish this, numerical models were simulated over high-resolution base maps generated from airborne light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, and interferometric synthetic aperture radar, or IFSAR technologies. Some of these projects under the NOAA program eventually became the Philippine Space Agency, or PhilSat. Secondly, it was new in terms of being the first non-overseas development assisted, or ODA-funded program of this scale. Previously, all programs of this scale were funded either through development aid or loans by foreign countries. In short, the NOAA program was about self-reliance and about building local capacity, which made use of local resources and skills. Third, the NOAA program was unique because it made use of operational research as the scientific approach to combat natural hazards. Operational research is described as a scientific approach to the solution of problems in the management of complex systems in a rapidly changing environment where objective lessons and insights from past experiences are sought to facilitate the implementation of more effective solutions. In this approach, academics from universities were tapped and communities were engaged, trying out international best practices, including community empowerment for disaster risk reduction. By including the communities from the very start of research, they emerged to have a real stake in its outcome. This is opposed to doing research and later on providing the outputs of the research to the community, which was thought to be largely ineffective. The program was really about citizen empowerment, as national datasets concerning severe weather, such as rainfall, flood, and other weather parameters, were distributed online through web platforms. Emergencies require fast action, and the best way to address this was to empower Filipinos with real-time information available at their fingertips. About 2,000 locally manufactured sensors were deployed. Typhoon tracks as well as satellite imagery were overlaid on top of rainfall data, providing a clear view of the state of weather 24/7. Doppler data for the first time was streamed online. Previously, Doppler data were first interpreted by scientists, and the interpretations released in an advisory at 5 a.m., 11 a.m. in the morning, and 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. in the evening. High-resolution barangay-level flood, landslide, and storm surge hazard maps were made available online. Previously, these were only available either as hard copy maps or hard-to-copy digital maps in PDF format. Flood and other hazard maps were overlain with OpenStreetMap building footprints. Youth mappers conducted mapathons with OpenStreetMaps to validate the AI-generated footprints of Microsoft and Mapbox. All these were done to provide tools to educate the public about river floodplains being part of the river and not of anyone's property. The river will reclaim what is rightfully hers during extreme rainfall and flood events. According to the online statistics, within 16 months from its launch, the revamped NOAA website has been used by 3 million Filipinos over the course of 6.1 million sessions with 10 million page views. Website visits peak during typhoons. Moreover, in a 2022 UNDP report survey, NOAA is among the platforms heavily used by LGUs in developing their CDRA, DRR plans, Comprehensive Development Plans or CDP, and as well as contingency plans. It is demonstrated by ranking third with a score of 59.7% and tied with the Philippine Statistics Authority in the awareness and level of access. A lot of what is NOAA was inspired by citizen participation immediately after Ondoy. During that time, citizen flood maps were drawn using Facebook and Google, which was touted to reshape disaster planning in Metro Manila. We created citizen apps for crowdsourcing. The beauty of crowdsourcing is it allows community participation, which raises awareness and involvement of the people, engaging them to have a bigger stake in finding solutions to our disaster problems. More recently, we requested netizens to participate in a crowdsourcing effort to analyze the 2020 Taal Volcano Tephra deposits. Netizens from all over Metro Manila and the Calabarzon region readily joined and contributed data on the thickness of the ashfall that were deposited in their backyard. The result was outstanding. We were able to calculate the distribution of the fall deposits, the thickness, size distribution of the ash, and eventually the discharge rate, height of the volcanic plume, and the size of the eruption. This was the first publication in the world of an explosive volcanic eruption that was investigated using crowdsourced data. Now, we are exploring citizen science for better understanding of natural hazards and earthquake education using low-cost seismometers. Engaging people at a young age would spur interest for the next generation of seismologists. Citizen science is an important vehicle for democratizing science and promoting the goal of universal and equitable access to scientific data and information. Data generated by citizen science groups have become an increasingly important source for scientists, applied users, and those pursuing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Please watch this video, as this is one of the ways we are using earthquake data from our public seismic network to run the motors of a shake table. This shake table is based on actual earthquake data.
Go.
By engaging citizens directly in data collection, such as drone imaging, earthquake stewardship, and crowdsourcing flood heights into project design, we provide policymakers and citizens with valuable data and information they need to make informed and effective decisions. Abiding by the principles of citizen science, we can help communities establish a new social contract around data stewardship. This is what the Sendai Framework's whole of society and science-based approaches are all about. It is getting all the multidisciplinary scientists to collaborate and at the same time work in interdisciplinary manner with experts from the arts, humanities, and social sciences to communicate and get the message across to people. The science also needs to be mainstreamed into the development plans of communities with the LGUs and other stakeholders making actions fully transdisciplinary. This way, a new social contract emerges, grounded in the principles of value, equity, and most importantly, trust, which are unequivocally all for the public good. Thank you very much for listening.